I'm a 26-year-old graphic designer living in Portland, Oregon. What happened to me 2 years ago made me move out of my apartment and completely change how I live. This still haunts me. I'd been working at a mid-sized design firm for about 3 years when I rented a one-bedroom apartment in an older building downtown. The rent was affordable, which was rare for the area, but the building had decent security with a front gate and a lock on the main entrance door. My usual routine was pretty predictable. I'd work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the office, grab coffee on the way home, and spend my evenings either working on freelance projects or just watching Netflix. On weekends, I'd usually go out with friends or catch up on errands. It was a Thursday night in late September when everything changed. I remember because I'd just finished a big project presentation that day, and I was exhausted. I got home around 6 p.m., ordered Thai food, and settled into my couch to decompress. I was still in my work clothes with my laptop open beside me. Around 7:45 p.m., I decided to take a quick shower before my food arrived. I turned on my music, left my apartment door unlocked because I was expecting the delivery in the next 15 minutes, and stepped into the bathroom. I was shampooing my hair when I thought I heard my front door close. I paused for a second, listening. The water was running, so I couldn't hear clearly, but I was pretty sure I'd heard something. I figured it was the delivery driver. I turned off the shower, quickly rinsed the shampoo out, and grabbed my towel. When I stepped out of the bathroom into my bedroom, I noticed my bedroom door was closed. I always left it open for airflow. My stomach did a little flip, but I told myself I must have closed it absent-mindedly that morning before work. I dried off quickly, threw on sweatpants and a t-shirt, and walked out into my living room to get my wallet for the driver. That's when I saw him. A man was standing in my kitchen, just standing there. He wasn't moving, wasn't doing anything. He was just there, watching me. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, wearing all dark clothing. His face was weathered, maybe in his 50s, with a scar running down his left cheek. His eyes were completely empty, no expression, no feeling, just cold, empty staring. My entire body went numb. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. Every muscle in my body froze. He took a step toward me. That single step broke whatever paralysis had gripped me. I screamed. I screamed so loud, my throat immediately hurt. He didn't respond to my scream. He just kept walking toward me, slowly, deliberately, like he had all the time in the world, and I wasn't even real to him. I backed up toward my front door, still screaming, and he kept coming. I managed to reach the door, yank it open, and run into the hallway still screaming. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, opened her door to see what was happening. She must have heard me shrieking. When she opened her door, she took one look at the man now standing in my doorway and immediately pulled me into her apartment and slammed the door. She called 911 while I stood there dripping wet, shaking, trying to explain what had just happened. The police arrived within 8 minutes. When they went into my apartment, the man was gone. My windows were still locked. My front door, which I'd left unlocked, was the only way in or out. They found muddy footprints in my kitchen, presumably from where he'd been standing. They also found a crowbar on my kitchen counter, as if he'd been about to use it. The police checked the entire building. They found that he'd gotten in through a side maintenance door that had a broken lock. No one knew how long he'd been in the building or how long he'd been waiting. My neighbor said she'd heard nothing unusual before the screaming. They filed a police report and did everything they could, but they never caught him. The building increased security after that, but I couldn't stay there. The thought of him maybe still being in the building or knowing exactly where I lived was too much. To this day, I live in a different part of Portland. I have 3 locks on my front door. I never leave my apartment unlocked, not even for a second. I have a security system. I still sleep with my bedroom door locked. Sometimes I wonder if he made it into my apartment by accident, thinking it was someone else's, or if he deliberately chose my place. The police never figured it out, and he was never caught. I still don't know what he would have done if I'd stayed in that shower another 2 minutes. I'm a 31-year-old accountant living in Denver, Colorado. This happened about 3 years ago, and I'm still not sure I've processed it completely. I lived in a quiet residential neighborhood in a nice 2-story house that I bought with my girlfriend Sarah. We'd moved in together about a year before this incident. It was our first real investment together, and we were really proud of the place. It was a typical suburban home with a small backyard, a driveway, and good neighbors on both sides. Sarah worked as a nurse at a hospital about 15 minutes away, and I worked a standard 9-to-5 job downtown. Our schedules often didn't align, so one of us was usually alone at home at various times during the day. On a Tuesday morning in March, Sarah left for her 7 a.m. shift. I wasn't scheduled to work that day because I was taking a personal day to catch up on house maintenance projects. I remember the exact date because Sarah had reminded me that morning that the plumber was coming to fix a leaky kitchen faucet, scheduled for around 10 a.m. After Sarah left, I made coffee and settled on the couch with my laptop to handle some personal finances stuff. It was about 8:30 a.m. I was in sweatpants and a hoodie, completely relaxed, scrolling through email. Around 9:15 a.m., I heard a car pull into the driveway. I assumed it was the plumber arriving early. I didn't get up immediately, just listened as I heard a car door slam and footsteps approaching the house. I waited for the doorbell to ring, but it didn't. That was odd. The plumber always rang the bell. I waited another 30 seconds, then got up to check. Through the front window, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked in my driveway. No one was at the door. I figured maybe the driver was looking at their phone, checking the address or looking for the doorbell. I opened the door to help. No one was there. The car was still in my driveway, driver's side door still open. I looked around the yard. Nothing. I called out, "Hello," a couple of times, but got no response. The whole thing felt really strange. I grabbed my phone and checked the time with the plumber's appointment. It wasn't him according to my calendar. I went back inside and locked the door behind me, suddenly not feeling as comfortable anymore. The unknown car in my driveway bothered me. I walked through the house and looked out the back window, but I didn't see anyone in the yard. I decided to text Sarah. "There's a random car in our driveway. Guy got out, but I don't see him. Not the plumber." Sarah immediately texted back, "Get out of the house, call the police." Before I could even respond, I heard the front door handle jiggle. Not a knock, not a ring. Someone was trying the door handle. My heart started racing. I called 911 immediately and whispered to the operator that someone was trying to get into my house while I was home alone. The door handle stopped jiggling. Instead, I heard a low whisper from outside the door. I couldn't make out the words, just that there were two distinct voices, both male. Then I heard the back door to my kitchen rattle. They were trying both entrances simultaneously. The 911 operator told me to go to a secure room and stay on the line. I ran to my bedroom upstairs, locked the door, and slid under my bed, phone pressed to my ear. I could hear them now. They were inside my house, downstairs. I could hear their footsteps, muffled voices, drawers opening. "Check up there," one of them said. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. My breathing was so loud I was terrified they'd hear me. I covered my mouth with my hand, pressing myself as far back under the bed as I could. The bedroom door handle turned, then tried harder, rattling the lock. "Locked," I heard the man say from outside the room. "Let's get the electronics and go." They ransacked the house downstairs for what felt like hours, but was probably only about 8 minutes. I could hear them pulling stuff around, opening cabinets, throwing things. Then I heard sirens, distant at first, then getting closer. The men's voices changed immediately. "Police, let's go." I heard fast footsteps, then the sound of a car door slamming. Tires screeched as they peeled out of my driveway. The police arrived about 90 seconds later. When they entered my house, they found them already gone. The men had stolen my laptop, Sarah's laptop, both our tablets, her grandmother's jewelry box from the bedroom, and about $300 in cash from a drawer in my nightstand. But that wasn't the worst part. The police found a back window had been forced open with a screwdriver that they left behind. It was the mudroom window that faced the side of our house, completely obscured from the street. One of the officers pulled me aside and said something that made my blood run cold. He told me that burglars often watch homes during the day to see who comes and goes. He believed they'd been watching our house, saw Sarah leave for her nursing shift, and planned to rob the house knowing a woman alone would make easier targets. They'd seen me come to the front door and realized there was a man inside. That's why they changed tactics and hit both doors simultaneously. They were testing to see if I'd come down or if I'd stay hidden. I was under the bed the whole time, but if I'd come downstairs to investigate or try to stop them, the outcome could have been completely different. The police never caught them. Our security camera footage showed two men in hoodies with their faces covered. They could have been anyone. To this day, I keep all my doors and windows locked at all times. I work from home now most days. We had a security system installed immediately after the break-in and reinforced all our windows. Sarah has lasting anxiety about being home alone. We still both check behind every shower curtain and under every bed before we ever relax in our house. I still think about that moment under the bed, listening to footsteps trying to get into my room. I wonder what they would have done if they'd gotten that door open. The police officer's words about why they were watching us still replay in my mind. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, still watching homes, looking for their next target. I'm a 29-year-old stay-at-home mom living in a suburb of Austin, Texas. My husband travels frequently for work, which means I'm often alone with my two kids. What happened last year is something I've told very few people because it still doesn't feel real. My husband James had left for a 4-day business trip on a Monday morning. He drove to the airport around 6 a.m., and I was left with Emma, who was 6 years old, and Tommy, who was 4. It was a pretty typical situation. James traveled every couple months, and I was used to managing the household solo. The house was a nice 3-bedroom with a basement that we mostly used for storage and laundry. I tried to keep the basement door locked because Tommy liked to wander, but I wasn't obsessive about it. The house had a security system, but honestly, I rarely armed it during the day when we were home. The neighborhood was safe and quiet. That Monday, the kids and I had a normal day. We did their school activities, played in the yard, had dinner, and started bedtime routine around 7:30 p.m. By 8:15 p.m., both kids were asleep. I was alone downstairs watching TV in my bedroom with my door locked, which was my routine whenever James was gone. The TV was on, I had a glass of wine, and I was just trying to relax after managing 2 young kids all day. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard a noise from downstairs. It sounded like something had fallen or been dropped. My first thought was that maybe something in the basement had shifted, or maybe a shelf had finally given way from the weight of boxes I'd been storing there for months. I assumed it was just the house settling. Older homes make noises. I'd gotten used to random creaks and bumps. I kept watching TV. 20 minutes later, I heard it again. This time it was more distinct. It sounded like the basement door opening. That got my attention. I muted the TV and listened carefully. The basement door doesn't open on its own. It needs to be deliberately pulled open. I got out of bed and walked to my bedroom door. I listened from there. Everything seemed quiet now. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the latch on the basement door was loose and the house's natural settling had caused it to pop open a bit. Or maybe I'd imagined it or misheard something else. I went back to bed and continued watching TV, though I'll admit I was paying more attention to the sounds in the house now. It was about 10:15 p.m. when I heard footsteps on the basement stairs. Distinct, unmistakable footsteps. Someone was coming up from the basement. My entire body went rigid. I sat completely still, listening. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, step by step, coming up the basement stairs. My mind was racing. Possibilities flooded through my head. Burglar, escaped prisoner, home invader, murderer, all the worst-case scenarios. I grabbed my phone off my nightstand and immediately called 911. I whispered to the operator that I heard someone in my house, that I had 2 young children upstairs, and I didn't know who was in my basement. The operator told me to stay on the line and remain quiet. She asked if I'd armed my security system. I hadn't. "Can you lock yourself in a room with the children?" she asked. "I'm locked in my bedroom," I whispered. "The kids are asleep upstairs." "Go get the children," she said. "Bring them to your room. Lock the door. Police are being dispatched to your location." I hung up and quickly ran upstairs in the dark. I didn't turn on any lights because I didn't want whoever was in my house to know exactly where I was. I grabbed Emma first, who was a light sleeper and immediately confused about being woken up. I carried her to my room and came back for Tommy, who was harder to wake up. The whole process probably took 2 minutes, but it felt like 30. I got both kids into my bed, locked the bedroom door again, and turned my phone back to the 911 operator. "I have the children. We're locked in my bedroom upstairs." "Police are 4 minutes out," the operator told me. "Are you hearing anything else?" I went quiet, listening intently. The footsteps had stopped after they reached the top of the basement stairs. I didn't hear anything else now. No movement, no sounds. The house was completely silent, except for my kids asking me scared questions about what was happening. "It's okay," I told them, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're just having an adventure. Let's be really quiet right now." Every second felt like an eternity. I sat there in the dark with my 2 young children, staring at my locked bedroom door, waiting for either the police or for something terrible to happen. 2 minutes passed, then 3, then finally, I heard a loud banging on my front door. "This is the Austin Police Department. We have officers surrounding the house." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I unlocked my bedroom door and ran downstairs with the kids. When I opened the door, there were 2 police officers outside with their hands on their weapons. "Are you the resident?" one of them asked. "Yes, I'm Sarah," I told them. "I heard someone in my basement." "Go to your car," the first officer instructed. "Get in and lock the doors. Don't come out until we tell you to." The officers entered my house with their weapons drawn. Emma was crying. Tommy was confused. I grabbed both kids, left the house as quickly as I could, and got into my car in the driveway with the doors locked. I sat there with my children in the dark for about 15 minutes, watching my house as multiple police cars arrived, lights flashing silently in the night. Eventually, an officer came to my car and told me it was safe to come inside. They'd swept the entire house, the basement, the attic, every closet, every possible hiding spot. They found nothing, no one in my house, no signs of forced entry, no broken locks or windows. I asked them how this was possible. I heard someone coming up the basement stairs. I know I did. One of the officers, a woman named Officer Martinez, asked if the basement door had been locked. I told her I tried to keep it locked because of my kids, but I couldn't say for certain it had been locked that particular day. She checked the door. The lock was a simple push-button lock on the handle. There was no sign of tampering, no scratches around the lock. The door appeared to have been unlocked normally. "Could someone have been in your basement?" she asked. I felt my stomach drop. Could someone have been down there while I was upstairs with my kids, before I locked myself in my bedroom? I showed the officers the basement. There were shelves of boxes, the washer and dryer, some old furniture. Everything looked normal. No signs that anyone had been there. No disturbed boxes. No footprints. Nothing. The officer suggested maybe I'd heard the house settling, or maybe a neighbor's noise traveling through the walls. She was trying to be reassuring, but I could see doubt in her eyes too. They filed a report and told me to call back immediately if I heard anything else. They stayed outside for another 30 minutes before clearing the scene. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up with both kids in my bedroom, lights on, door locked, listening to every sound in the house. James came home the next day after I called him in complete panic. I told him everything. He had the locks changed immediately, installed a security system, and put motion detecting lights around the entire house. But here's the thing that still disturbs me more than anything. 3 days later, when they were changing the basement lock, the locksmith found something in the lock mechanism, a small foreign object wedged inside the lock. It was just a thin piece of metal, but it was preventing the lock from engaging properly. Someone had deliberately jammed the lock so it wouldn't lock, and based on how corroded the metal piece was, it had been there for several weeks, maybe longer. The police brought in a detective when I told them about this discovery. They said that this technique was commonly used by people who wanted access to a house. They'd disable the lock weeks ahead of time to ensure they could get back in when they wanted. The detective asked me if I'd noticed anything else unusual in the past few weeks, anything missing, anyone watching the house, any strange cars parked nearby. I couldn't think of anything specific. But now I was replaying the previous month in my head, looking for signs I might have missed. The detective's theory was that someone had been watching our house, had gotten into the basement weeks prior, had jammed the lock, and was checking back periodically whether they'd been in my basement the night I heard footsteps, or whether I'd misheard something. I'll never know. But the thought that someone could have had access to my basement for weeks, that they could have gone down there whenever they wanted, that they could have been observing our house and our patterns, that's a violation that goes deeper than any physical theft. To this day, I never use my basement unless James is home. I keep every lock in my house replaced and maintained. I have the security system armed at all times, even when we're home. I'm writing this because I need people to understand that these things happen. Not always the dramatic home invasion with breaking glass and screaming. Sometimes it's subtler. Sometimes it's someone testing your locks over weeks or months. Sometimes it's someone in your space that you never even see. Check your locks. Make sure they actually work. Check them regularly, because someone could be checking them too, and I still don't know who jammed that basement lock. I still don't know if they were in my house that night. I still don't know if they ever came back.